Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really ambitious journey to understand a life that was lived right at the epicenter of cultural history.
Mm,
We're talking about the life of Lisa Marie Presley, and our mission here is to move far beyond the sensational headlines.
way beyond.
We want to really dissect the unique complexity she faced, not just as an artist trying to find her own voice, but as a devoted humanitarian and maybe most definingly, as the sole heir to what is arguably the most massive cultural legacy in modern music.
It's a deep dive into a life spent in an incredibly unique pressure cooker. I mean, you're talking about someone who was born into a full-blown mythology,
Right.
growing up with a name that's synonymous with the global cultural revolution, all while navigating this relentless public scrutiny, profound personal trauma, and this lifelong effort to establish her own identity.
An independent identity.
Exactly. And we really must approach this material with deep sensitivity and respect. The sources we've gathered, they give a pretty panoramic view.
So what are we looking at?
We're covering her early biographical details, the very high-stakes financial stewardship of the Elvis Presley estate, her evolution as a musician, the really intricate web of her relationships, her charity work, the immense tragedies she faced, and of course the painful public legal aftermath that followed her untimely death.
Okay, let's unpack this enormous legacy, and we should start right at the beginning. The foundation of her entire existence.
Where it all began.
Lisa Marie arrived on February 1st, 1968, in Memphis, and that was 9 months to the day after her parents, Elvis and Priscilla Presley, got married.
I mean, that detail alone. From day one, her birth established her as you said, royalty in the public eye.
And her childhood was already so unique right from the start.
It really was. It created these two distinct, and you could say often conflicting, realities for her. After her parents' divorce, she was only 4. She lived primarily with her mother in Los Angeles.
Which was still high profile, but maybe more.
Comparatively normal, yes. But then she would spend these significant chunks of time with her father at Graceland. And Graceland was a fortress. It was a fantasy world. It was her playground all at once.
A world unto itself.
Completely. And then her life's trajectory was just irrevocably set in August 1977. Elvis died,
And she was only 9.
just 9 years old.
Ah.
And at that moment, she becomes a joint heiress to his vast, but, and this is a key point, at the time, financially precarious estate.
That's a crucial detail we often forget. The estate wasn't the cash cow we know today, not immediately, and she wasn't the only heir in the immediate aftermath.
Exactly right. When Elvis passed, the estate was just strangled by significant estate taxes and a rapid depletion of cash. It's shocking, really, given his income.
So who was she sharing it with?
Initially, she shared the inheritance with her grandfather, Vernon Presley, and her great-grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley.
But that situation changed very quickly.
It did. It marked a major turning point. Vernon passed away in 1979, and then Minnie Mae followed in 1980.
So within 3 years of Elvis's death.
She became the only surviving beneficiary. But she wouldn't take actual control of it until she turned 25.
And that delay, from 1980 all the way to 1993, it really just highlights the absolute, the necessity of Priscilla's intervention.
Oh, completely. That intervention transformed the estate from what was a complex financial burden
That huge burden.
into a sustainable and highly profitable business. That turnaround is arguably one of the most significant business success stories in music history.
So when Lisa Marie officially inherited on her 25th birthday in 1993, what was it actually worth?
The value had just ballooned to an estimated $100 million.
Wow.
And this phenomenal turnaround was entirely due to Priscilla's decision to professionalize the business, to open Graceland to the public in 1982, and to commercially license the Elvis brand, the intellectual property. That ensured the estate's long-term financial health.
So when Lisa Marie takes the reins in 93, she steps into the role of owner and chairman of the board of Elvis Presley Enterprises, Inc. How hands-on was she during that time, up to 2005?
From what the sources say, she was extremely involved. She was actively overseeing the business for over a decade.
And that must have been important for perception.
Critically important. For the public, for the employees, the fact that the heir was personally engaged mattered. And you have to remember, EPE wasn't just Graceland tours.
No, it was global.
It handled global licensing, merchandising, the whole presentation of the Elvis brand worldwide. Her ownership was a symbol of continuity, of authenticity.
But then comes the defining financial action of her stewardship in 2004, a massive decision that essentially restructured the whole business.
While protecting the historical and emotional core of the legacy.
Let's get into the specifics of that sale to CKX Inc.
Okay, so this decision, it really requires a deep understanding of what the Elvis estate is. In 2004, she sold 85% of EPE's business holdings to CKX Inc.
And what did that actually include? What was being sold?
So what was sold were the commercial operations, the intellectual property rights, the rights to license Elvis's name and image globally, the business operations of the Graceland campus, the tours, the merchandise revenue streams.
All the money-making assets.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The assets that generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue.
And what did she keep? Because this is where the emotional value really comes in.
This is the crucial part. She retained a 15% stake, which was a symbolic commercial position, but more importantly, she retained 100% personal ownership of Graceland Mansion itself.
The house.
The original property and all the artifacts within it. The jungle room, the meditation garden, all of it.
That was non-negotiable for her.
Absolutely. It guaranteed that Graceland, the physical home, would forever remain in the family's hands. It was a very conscious choice to separate the massive corporate money-making machine from the sacred family residence and museum. She kept that link to the land, to the history, even as she sold off the business infrastructure.
That level of detail really shows the strategic importance of that moment. Before we explore her own artistic path, we have to acknowledge the early personal trauma that shaped her. This section is profoundly difficult.
It is. It deals with allegations of severe trauma starting in her childhood.
And this trauma can't be overlooked.
No, because it provides such crucial context for the immense struggles she faced throughout her adult life. Her battles with addiction, her complex relationships, it's all interconnected.
These allegations became public in a 2003 Playboy interview, right?
They did, and they were later reiterated in her posthumously released memoir, From Here to the Great Unknown.
What specifically do the sources detail? And we need to be very careful and clear here.
She alleged that Michael Edwards, who was her mother Priscilla's live-in boyfriend shortly after Elvis died, began being sexually inappropriate with her and assaulting her.
And how old was she?
This started in 1978. She was around 10 years old. She described the abuse as continuing for several years.
It's impossible to overstate the long-term devastating impact of that.
A violation like that, occurring in her own home, at such a vulnerable age, it would have just shattered her psyche, her sense of safety, her ability to form healthy relationships. And this was a secret trauma carried by a child who was already under the intense glare of the world's most recognizable spotlight.
A devastating foundation. Okay, let's pivot now to her attempts to forge an identity separate from that foundation. Her music career.
Which was, a unique and perhaps impossible task.
How so?
Imagine wanting to be a singer, a songwriter, and every single note, every lyric, every move on stage is instantly compared to the king of rock and roll.
The pressure must have been paralyzing.
For years it was.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to look at her early musical interests. The sources mention her love of theatrics, of spectacle, and it seems to stem from her first rock concert experience.
Seeing Queen.
Yes, seeing Queen at the Forum in Inglewood in the late 1970s.
And there's that amazing anecdote connecting her directly to Freddie Mercury.
It's so poignant. After the show, she gave Freddie Mercury one of her father's scarves. That little moment, it suggests this early affinity for the dramatic, soulful, rebellious side of rock, a genre she'd later embrace. It shows a connection to performance, but on her own terms, separate from her father's history.
So she finally debuts in 2003 with To Whom It May Concern. Even the title feels like a statement.
It really does. She was already addressing her critics, the world's expectations.
And it was a very strong debut. It kind of confounded those who expected a simple vanity project.
It did. It performed well immediately. Reached number 5 on the Billboard 200 chart.
That's huge.
And it was certified gold in June 2003, just 2 months after its release. But what made it so credible was her depth of involvement. She insisted on writing all the lyrics herself.
All of them.
All the lyrics, and she co-wrote every melody, with the one exception of the track The Road Between, which she co-wrote.
Right.
This was not someone trading on a name. This was an artist using music as a form of expression, a catharsis.
And the critics, they seem to agree that her work stood on its own.
They did. Robert Hilburn, who was a very respected critic at the LA Times, he gave it high praise. And he focused not on her lineage, but on her unique artistic voice.
What did he point out?
He highlighted the album's stark, uncompromising tone and specifically lauded her gutsy, blues-edged voice. He recognized she had this distinctive flair for emotional delivery.
And the single Lights Out did well overseas.
Very well. It hit number 16 on the UK charts. And she even collaborated with Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins, who co-wrote the B-side track Savior. The whole production, by Eric Ross, gave it this dark, adult contemporary rock edge that just perfectly fit the lyrical themes of betrayal and vulnerability.
So then her follow-up, now what, comes out 2 years later in 2005, it seemed to continue that success, but maybe ratchet up the lyrical intensity.
For sure. Now, what showed that her debut wasn't a fluke, it charted strongly again, reaching number 9 on the Billboard 200. And she maintained that creative control, co-writing 10 of the album's tracks.
It was more assertive, it seemed.
Overtly assertive, both in its sound and its lyrics.
I remember the single Dirty Laundry being really notable, especially for a cover.
Right, a cover of the Don Henley classic about media exploitation and sensationalism. It was a first single, hit number 36 on the Billboard AC Singles chart.
Choosing that song was such a deliberate statement.
A huge statement about the intrusive press she faced every single day. But the album also included very confrontational original material.
Like the song Idiot.
Yes. Idiot was explicitly described in sources as a jab towards different men in her life.
So she was using her music as a platform, a very personal one.
Highly personal, even confrontational, airing grievances, reflecting on difficult relationships. The raw nature of it was reflected in the parental advisory sticker on the cover. She also covered the Ramones' Here Today and Gone Tomorrow and collaborated with Pink on the track Shine, adding another layer of contemporary rock relevance.
After Now What, there was a pretty significant gap. 7 years before her third album, Storm and Grace, in 2012. And this album represented a complete sonic and artistic shift.
That pause was crucial for her evolution as an artist. She intentionally moved away from the polished rock sound of her first 2 records.
And pivoted towards something else.
She described it as much more of a rootsy record, an organic record. This was her embrace of a more authentic Southern Gothic Americana sound.
And the production choice for Storm and Grace really cemented its critical importance.
Absolutely. The album was produced by T-Bone Burnett.
I mean, that's a huge name, an Oscar and Grammy winner.
Known for his work with Robert Plant and Alison Krauss on Raising Sand, the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou soundtrack. Burnett's involvement immediately lent the project immense credibility in the Americana and folk music scene.
And Burnett's assessment of her work, that must have been the ultimate artistic validation. It suggested she wasn't just Elvis's daughter anymore.
It was everything. His praise was incredibly high and so specific. He admitted that when her songs first arrived, he was curious, but he was immediately struck by the material. He described it as honest, raw, unaffected, and soulful. He declared her a Southern American folk music artist of great value and said he believed her father would be proud. All music mirrored this, calling Storm and Grace a much stronger, more mature, and more effective work. This album, it really achieved what she had been fighting for her whole career.
Recognition.
Recognition of her talent outside the context of her birthright, as an artist truly channeling her own roots and her own struggles.
Beyond her original work, she also found these incredibly moving ways to connect her art directly back to her father's legacy, these duets.
Using the archival recordings, they were immensely emotional for her and for the public. The first was in 1997, for the 20th anniversary of Elvis's death, a virtual duet of Don't Cry Daddy.
And that was poignant. The 2007 version of In the Ghetto carried so much philanthropic weight.
Precisely. The success of that song was directly tied to her humanitarian work.
Where did the proceeds go?
They were specifically directed to benefit the Presley Place Transitional Housing Campus in New Orleans. And the emotional resonance was huge. The video reached #1 on iTunes sales. It just proved the enduring power of their combined voices. She was able to use her father's music to serve her own deeply felt charitable purpose.
She also collaborated with other music icons outside of the family.
Yes, in 2006, she was featured in the music video for Johnny Cash's haunting rendition of God's Gonna Cut You Down.
Which was a huge deal.
Produced by Rick Rubin, the video featured a whole array of celebrities. It was highly acclaimed, eventually winning a Grammy in 2008 for Best Short-Form Music Video. Yeah. These collaborations showed she was accepted within a circle of respected, roots-oriented artists.
We have to transition now to her complex and highly scrutinized personal life. She had 4 marriages, each one just intensely documented by the media, starting with Danny Keough.
Danny Keough was her first husband, a Chicago-born musician and actor. They married in 1988 at the Scientology Celebrity Center in Los Angeles.
So this was a relationship built on a shared faith.
Shared faith, shared artistic interests. The marriage produced her 2 oldest children, her daughter Riley Keough, born in '89, and her son Benjamin, born in 92.
And there's a detail often noted in the sources about Benjamin's birth.
That's right. He was delivered via silent birth, which is a specific Scientology practice requiring silence during delivery to minimize distress for the baby. It really demonstrates the depth of her commitment to the organization during that period of her life.
But the most unique aspect of this relationship was its endurance, how close they remained even after the divorce in 1994.
It's truly remarkable. Most celebrity divorces end bitterly, but Kiefer remained her rock, her closest confidant and friend for decades.
He was the best man at her fourth wedding.
Which just speaks volumes about their connection. He played bass in her touring band. He lived in a guest house on her property for years. She consistently called him her best friend and said she loved him unconditionally.
He was her anchor.
In a life marked by such intense chaos and betrayal, that constant, unconditional bond was her anchor.
An anchor that was quickly followed by one of the most high-voltage celebrity pairings of all time. Her marriage to Michael Jackson.
The speed and intensity of that relationship just captivated the entire world.
The timeline is breathtaking.
She divorced Kieff in May 1994, and just 20 days later, she married Michael Jackson in a private ceremony in the Dominican Republic.
And while the world saw this merger of two cultural icons, the context was really dominated by the allegations he was facing at the time.
Heavily influenced by the sexual abuse allegations. And she publicly defended him fiercely. She made it clear she believed he was wrongly accused.
And she said she wanted to save him.
That was her stated motivation. She wanted to save him. She actively persuaded him to settle the allegations out of court and to enter rehab. It seemed to stem from this deep empathy and a desire to protect someone she felt was fragile and misunderstood.
But the intensity was just unsustainable.
She filed for divorce in January 1996, citing irreconcilable differences. But the sources make it very clear that the connection did not simply end there.
There was a long, complex post-divorce attachment.
Far from it. In a 2010 interview with Oprah, she revealed they tried to reconcile intermittently for 4 years after their divorce. She confessed to feeling this incredible high whenever she was near him, an almost addictive connection.
And in her memoir, she reflects on that time.
She does. And it underscores the emotional peak he represented for her. In her 2024 memoir, she says of that period with Jackson, "I've never been that happy again."
That's a powerful statement.
Published posthumously, it really frames the struggle she endured after that marriage ended.
After that, she had a brief engagement to musician John Ozoshka.
Right, they met in 1999, they were engaged, but she broke it off in March 2001, almost immediately after meeting her next husband, Nicolas Cage, at a party.
And Cage was a known Elvis fanatic.
A huge Elvis fanatic. It was a highly publicized, a very brief union of two Hollywood scions. And the marriage was exceptionally short, even by celebrity standards.
How long?
They married in August 2002. Cage filed for divorce just 107 days later. The divorce was finalized in 2004. It seemed volatile, intense, matching Cage's own persona.
Her fourth and final marriage was to Michael Lockwood, which it began with stability, but devolved into a very long and distressing legal battle.
She married Lockwood, a guitarist and producer, in Japan in 2006. And as we said, Danny Keough was the best man.
It seemed stable at first.
It did. It resulted in the birth of their fraternal twin daughters, Harper and Finley, in 2008. But that stability just fractured dramatically when she filed for divorce in 2016.
And this situation escalated in 2017 with some highly distressing court filings about the children. We have to be impartial but clear here.
It's a very painful area of her life. In those 2017 filings, she alleged that she'd found inappropriate images of children on Lockwood's personal computer.
And those allegations were serious enough to trigger immediate action.
Yes, the twins were temporarily placed in the care of Priscilla Presley.
And it is essential to detail the outcome of the investigations that followed.
Absolutely crucial for factual clarity. Multiple police agencies investigated. The Beverly Hills Police Department examined over 80 of Lockwood's electronic devices and concluded that no criminal activity was found.
And the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation?
The TBI also closed its case later in 2017, concluding no evidence of a crime had occurred in Tennessee. But despite the lack of criminal findings, the allegations made the custody dispute extremely toxic and prolonged. The divorce was only finalized years later, in May of 2021.
Moving now to the intersection of her deep personal struggles and her humanitarian efforts. Lisa Marie was remarkably open about her struggle with opioid dependency.
Which began medically. She publicly disclosed that her dependence started after being prescribed opioids following the birth of her twins in 2008.
A very common origin point for addiction.
Yes, what starts as legitimate pain management spirals into dependency, and she was transparent about that difficult path.
She even used her platform to share her experience to try and help others.
She did. In 2019, she wrote the foreword for the book United States of Opioids, and she discussed her personal experience. It was an act of public vulnerability that served to demystify addiction and attach a human face to the epidemic.
But this lifelong battle, it sadly resurfaced in the period leading up to her death.
The sources indicate the struggle was relentless. She had reportedly been using opioids again in the weeks prior to her death, and she had also lost a significant amount of weight, 40 to 50 pounds, in the preceding months.
Suggesting a period of severe distress.
A period of severe physical and mental distress right before she passed.
But despite that turmoil, she channeled her desire to make a difference into tangible charity work, most notably through the Presley Charitable Foundation.
The foundation established Presley Place in New Orleans in 2001, a highly regarded program aimed at giving comprehensive support to homeless families.
And it wasn't just a short-term shelter.
No, it was designed for long-term recovery and independence. It provides families with up to 1 year of rent-free housing, which removes that immediate financial pressure.
What other services did it provide?
Beyond shelter, they offered mandatory support, child daycare, career counseling, financial literacy education, self-esteem tools. The foundation also created the Elvis Presley Music Room, giving kids access to musical instruments. It was a holistic approach focused on real independence.
And she was very hands-on during national crises, like Hurricane Katrina.
Her response in 2005 is a prime example. She partnered with Oprah Winfrey's Angel Network and provided direct physical assistance in Memphis.
She was quoted as saying she felt compelled to act.
She said, "I'm here because I definitely needed to do something. People need help. This is a huge catastrophe and everyone needs to stand up." She personally oversaw loading trucks with supplies, working with FedEx and Kroger, and then traveled to Mississippi to distribute them directly to evacuees.
And her efforts were officially recognized.
Yes, in 2011, the governor of Tennessee issued a proclamation recognizing her extensive charity work. And 2 days later, the mayor of New Orleans presented her with a certificate of proclamation, specifically for her dedication to the city, especially after Katrina.
We also have to address her decades-long, high-profile involvement with the Church of Scientology, which was a defining element of her public persona for many years.
Her involvement was substantial. She worked closely with groups supported by Scientology, like the Literacy, Education, and Ability Program, or ALEAPE. She even received their Humanitarian Award in 2002.
And she used her influence to advocate on issues related to mental health treatments, even speaking before Congress.
In September 2002, she addressed a congressional hearing. She was speaking for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, or CCHR, which is run by Scientologists.
What was her testimony about?
She spoke in opposition to the routine use of medication for ADHD. She argued that parents needed to be informed about alternatives to pharmaceuticals, raising concerns about children being, quote, forced to take a cocaine-like stimulant.
But despite this devotion, the relationship eventually fractured.
It did. Although she was a high-profile member for decades, discontent started to grow around 2008. By 2014, she had formally left the organization, a profound shift in her life.
Our final segment has to address the immense grief that marked her last years, the circumstances of her sudden death, and the extraordinary legal battles that followed. We begin with the most devastating event of her life, the loss of her son, Benjamin.
The suicide of Benjamin Keough on July 12, 2020, at age 27, was a seismic event that fundamentally broke her spirit. The LA County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed it was a suicide by gunshot wound. The sources just paint a picture of grief so profound it overshadowed everything else.
Her daughter, Riley Keough, offered a heartbreaking insight into her mother's despair after that.
Riley reflected that Lisa Marie was never the same after Benjamin's death. The trauma was consuming, and Riley noted that her mother had seemingly lost the will to keep living. The loss of a child under those circumstances, it became the overwhelming narrative of her final 2.5 years.
And she chose to be buried next to him.
A symbol of that unbreakable bond.
Her last public appearance was just days before her death, at the 80th Golden Globe Awards.
She was there with her mother, Priscilla. And then she died suddenly on January 12, 2023. She was only 54. It was a cardiac arrest at her home in California. The public reaction was just one of shock.
The autopsy report provided a very clear and specific cause of death. And it's important to distinguish this from the issues of addiction she faced.
That distinction is critical. While opioids and other substances were found in her system, a testament to her ongoing struggle, the autopsy report explicitly specified the cause of death as a small bowel obstruction,
Which was a complication from a previous surgery.
a recognized complication from a bariatric surgery she'd had years before. Crucially, the medical examiner's office stated that the opioids were not cited as a direct factor in her death. The small bowel obstruction was the ultimate cause.
Her public memorial service really underscored her unique place in American culture.
It was held publicly at Graceland, and the scale was immense. Over 1.5 million people watched the live stream. She was interred in the Graceland Meditation Garden next to her son Benjamin and adjacent to her father Elvis.
But the tragedy of her passing almost instantly spiraled into legal turmoil.
Public and private turmoil centered on control of the estate and specifically Graceland.
And it started with the trust.
Yes. Priscilla challenged a 2016 amendment Lisa Marie had made. It removed Priscilla as a trustee and designated her two oldest children, Riley and Benjamin, as co-trustees.
Which meant that after Benjamin's death,
Riley Keough became the sole successor trustee, a position Priscilla immediately challenged in court.
and the situation became even more volatile with some shocking allegations filed by former business partners of Priscilla.
Yes, in August 2025, a lawsuit escalated the conflict significantly. They made these incredibly serious claims, alleging that Priscilla had deliberately pulled the plug on her daughter's life support to seize control of the trust.
And they alleged she exploited her death.
Yes, and we have to state clearly that Priscilla Presley denies these claims entirely. But the lawsuit painted this public picture of profound internal family division over the enormous assets.
As if family disputes weren't enough, Graceland itself became the target of a truly bizarre and audacious criminal fraud attempt.
This incident in August 2024, it reads like a thriller. A Missouri woman named Lisa Jeanine Finley was arrested for her role in a complex scheme to illegally force the foreclosure and sale of Graceland.
Based on identity theft.
Linked to a ring, allegedly based in Nigeria. They created a completely fictitious lending company called Nalseni Investments.
And what was the claim?
They fabricated loan documents, alleging Lisa Marie had taken out a non-existent $3.8 million loan in 2018. Finley's role was to pose as 3 different people affiliated with this fake lender to execute the fraud.
Just astounding audacity. What was the specific piece of evidence that shattered the whole thing?
The weakest link was the notary public's signature. They claimed the documents were notarized in 2018 by a Florida notary. But when Riley Keough filed a lawsuit, the notary submitted a sworn affidavit.
And what did she say?
She stated clearly, "I have never met Lisa Marie Presley, nor have I ever notarized a document signed by Lisa Marie Presley." That legally invalidated the core documents, cemented the fraud, and led to Finley's arrest.
That detail highlights the lengths people will go to try and claim a piece of this singular legacy.
It truly does. It underscores that even in death, her role as the guardian of Graceland continued to expose her and her family to constant, extraordinary, and often bizarre threats.
Here is a thought for you to carry forward as you reflect on this incredibly dense and complex life. How often do we truly consider the sheer weight of a unique life experience like hers? I mean, the impossible task of defining yourself when you are born into an iconic intergenerational legacy. She spent her life constantly battling for ownership.
Ownership of Graceland, ownership of her name, her identity, her family history, all while struggling with immense private trauma and addiction.
And her posthumous memoir, which her daughter Riley helped finalize, it gives such an intimate perspective on this exhaustive struggle, this battle for selfhood that defined her journey until her very final days.
It's a poignant reflection. Her life was defined by the inescapable demands of her name, forcing her to struggle every day to be seen not just as the daughter of the king, but as an artist and a woman in her own right who faced unique and profound adversity.
That constant pressure.
Artistic, financial, and emotional. It's the central unifying theme of her narrative. And it's maybe why her final, most personal record, Storm and Grace, resonated so deeply when she finally allowed herself to embrace her authentic, rooted identity.